Hello, Year 2 students. Welcome back again to remote learning for TTC through radio lessons. My name is Teacher Emma. I am going to be taking you through today's lesson. As you all are aware, we are not at school due to coronavirus pandemic. And Rwanda Education Board, in partnership with the World Bank and other partners, are supporting remote learning for all levels of education, including TTC. This lesson, we are again going to be looking at giving feedback. In our previous lesson, we looked at giving feedback. We looked at what feedback is. We also looked at the main purposes or the purpose of giving feedback. 2, we also at large looked at giving and receiving feedback. Friends, you remember, I did stress and mention that feedback is very important in the teaching learning process. As student teachers, you will be required to give feedback to your fellow friends, but you also, as you become teachers, day by day, you'll be required to give feedback to your students. And we saw the importance and the relevance of feedback. And among them, we realized that they boost confidence and self-esteem. Because of that, we need always to start from the good ones, or the good behaviors that you saw in a child in a particular lesson. It could be subject-related behaviors, and it can as well be the personal character. So we need to appreciate every stage of a child's progress. Now, I hope, as usual, you have your notebook and your pen. I am calling upon Year 1 and Year 3s also to join us. This can be a revision to the Year 3s, and also it could be an opportunity for the Year 1 since you'll be doing school practice when you get back to school. So, we are going to start by giving, or to start by really exploring the strategies that we use in giving feedback. So what are those effective strategies that a teacher should be able to use to give constructive feedback? Remember, we're not criticizing, but we are giving constructive feedback. Why constructive? It is because at the end of the day, the purpose of giving feedback, it is to promote improvement. So therefore, how do we do that? As we said in the last lesson, we said that we always start by appreciating good features that you were able to observe within the lesson. So, what are those effective strategies? And by the way, when we talk of this, we always give feedback even in real life. Are we together, my friend? Have you ever been served food with people and then you hear people saying, the food is delicious? That is feedback. Ooh, there's so much salt in food. That is feedback. Wow, you have dressed to kill. Meaning someone is very smart. So we give feedback day by day, every hour. And sometimes, as I mentioned, we not only give oral and written feedback, but even facial expressions. You could use a facial expression to really affirm that you are very happy with the child's behavior. In most cases, we always nod the head and we always put a thumbs up. So that means that you are happy. So the message to the other person is that you are happy with what he or she is doing. Are we together, my friend? Or sometimes you could be in disagreement and still you could use the facial expression. Are we together? Now, as strategies for effective feedback, always, we are always encouraged to always begin with the positives. What do I mean by the positives? The features that a child or someone else can be able to do well. If someone says, there's too much salt in food, is that good feedback or bad feedback? Yes. There is a way we can say it in a way that it doesn't harm someone who did the cooking. I would say, wow, this is really very good food. This is nice food. Just the salt is slightly, a little bit much. That one is different from the salt is too much in food. So the way we give feedback will always leave a mark in the person who did the action. So we are saying constructive criticism or feedback with explanation on how to improve. Yeah. So I would say if maybe I was eating food and the salt isn't enough, I would say food is delicious. This food is very delicious. If next time we have more salt, it will be very, very, very delicious. So that means I have already communicated to the other person or someone cooking that the food is very beautiful. First of all, they are happy. However, I've also indicated that salt wasn't enough. So negative information should be sandwiched between positive information. Are we together, my friends? Good. So remember, we're talking of being able to give an effective feedback. Again, for your feedback to be very effective, first of all, identify the right time for you to sit down and go through what you want to take through the other party is. So, first of all, we talked of you being able to begin with the positives and also sandwich the negatives, or we actually don't call them the negatives, but the areas to improve upon. We sandwich them with a positive. The food is delicious. Oh my God. Next time, if we have more salt, it will be more delicious. Now, that is, I have already highlighted that the salt is not enough in food. But I began by saying, this is delicious. Now, that's an encouragement to someone who cooked food. But then if I say, if we have more salt next time, it will be more delicious. That is beautiful. So someone will go encouraged at this time round, putting into mind, I have to make sure that I put the right amount of salt. My dear friends, so again, we're saying that when you give feedback, be careful not to give feedback in an open setting. If there could be feedback that is general for the whole class, which is okay to give, but there could be specific feedback that would be, for sure, focused on specific individuals. Again, depending on the nature of a learner, determine whether you are to do it in an open setting or determine whether it should be a one-to-one feedback session. Are we together, my friends? And when we are also giving feedback, do your personal reflection. Try your level best to show the other person that you are also not a perfect being. it is very important and very human always to acknowledge that there are also areas where you also fail. But there are certain ways you go along that help you to be able to improve. If you give feedback and you show the other person that you are just hoary, you are not creating a mutual relationship. There should be a connection. Create an environment in a way that the other person sees you as also a human being. That way, someone will be able to open up. Today, I have told you how always it's very important. No, it was actually in the previous lesson where I did mention about my struggling in multiplication tables. That way, the child will say, oh wow, even teacher Emma struggled one time in math. But the moment we go in and we want to show everything we were the best, we're creating a situation where someone is going to fear you. So for an effective feedback session, be human, first of all. 2, know what to say and when to say and who to say to. Take note of that. Know what to say to who and when to say so. Very important. Now, let us briefly look at the relevancy of giving feedback after performance. It is very important, my dear students, always to give feedback immediately after you have performed or someone has performed the action. Why? Because, first of all, your mind and your brain, actually both of you, are still fresh in as far as the action performed is concerned. So, giving feedback after that performance reduces uncertainty for learners by increasing knowledge and by eliminating alternative or competing explanations for behavior. This is very important because in most cases, the moment we don't give feedback after performance, we are creating a situation or an uncertainty where the other person thinks, did I do right? Did I do wrong? So you're creating suspense into the other person. Some people end up giving feedback after 2 to 3 days. Such feedback is not good. 1, you will have forgotten quite a lot of aspects that could have been very important for future improvement, but also the other person will also forget. And therefore, when they forget, what will happen? You are going to disagree on a number of aspects. This is where now the element of someone saying, no, I didn't do that. No, I didn't say that. No, you didn't get me right. Why? Because it took so long and someone has forgotten. Therefore, that is why we encourage you to give feedback immediately or after the performance. Why? Because it allows learners to act on the feedback. It is still fresh in the mind, and therefore they are able to acknowledge and accept, and they will be able to positively reinforce the feedback. Again, since it is still fresh within their mind, let's say, for example, you've given feedback on the teacher practices. Maybe teacher movement, teacher chalkboard use, classroom movement, task distribution, and all that. Or even the gestures. The teacher is able to communicate. Now, that is going to help because even the lesson that the teacher is going to teach next time, if the comment or the feedback or the area to improve upon was about, for example, teacher's movement within the class. So that one, in the next lesson, they are going to try and improve that. By the time you come back for a follow-up activity, you will see a big change. Why? Because you are able to straight away stick to that or strike that out immediately after performance. Allow learners time to focus on the feedback for improvement. Because the moment you give feedback after performance, learners or students will get the opportunity to sit back and say, okay, so now, next time, what do I need to do to improve this situation? And they will be creative, and they will be thinking. They will be imaginatively thinking on how best to be able to improve that aspect. Reinforce the value of the feedback and working in a supportive environment. What do I mean here? We need to make sure that we really help learners or student teachers understand that the value of feedback and working, supporting one another. When I'm going to teach, I always start away by telling my audience that, my dear audience, I have a weakness. And my weakness is that sometimes I speak very fast. Therefore, if you hear me speaking very fast, please always put your hand and say, please go slow. I always mention that to my class. And after the lesson, before I even get out, I say, class, how was my speed? Do I need to improve? Was it okay for you? Were you able to follow? Were you able to comprehend? So that helps me, and that shapes the next lesson that I'll have. So this is very important, that when we work together, when we support each other, we improve each other. You as a teacher, they improve your way of instruction, and you, them as students, it improves their learning processes. Are we together? Now, there are different ways people give feedback. But now I want to narrow it down in a classroom setting. So sometimes we give feedback whereby you look at the outcome a learner produces or the thinking process the learner uses. So you give them a task, and as you give them a task, you are observing what is the method that the child is using to be able to solve this task. So you're looking at the end of the day, what is she or he going to achieve? And what is it that helps this learner to achieve that? So you look at that and you are able to give feedback. Okay, very good. You were able to count 1 up to 10. And of course, maybe our lesson was them counting 1 up to 10. It's a P1 class. And what did they use? They were able to use stones and sticks. Okay, very good. Now, or sometimes, there are times when people give feedback comparing learners with others. And here you have to be careful, because sometimes it depends on the nature and the type of a learner. Some learners might not feel comfortable you comparing them with their friends. That is why sometimes we do encourage for the feedback to really be as individual as you can. Be specific. However, it also helps them to really fight hard and say, oh, okay, by the way, did you see how your friend performed that? Yes, maybe we're into physical education and it's a dribbling skill. And I want a specific child to be able to really improve on their dribbling skills. And I'm like, okay, do you remember how so-and-so was able to dribble? Can you try that? So I am giving feedback about their performance using another person. So feedback also describes or evaluates the learner's work, because that way we are trying to analyze. Are we together, my friends? Feedback for target users and stakeholders. So when we talk of that, assessment results should be conveyed to the learner and used to strengthen successful performance and assist in the remediation of a weak performance. So when we observe or when we test, it is very important always to go back to students and then discuss and share with them their performance. When we talk of the remedial always applies in areas where you've seen your student is struggling in. So that assessment helps them really to realize, oh, I need really to improve here. Okay, so I need to put in more effort. So that helps them to be able to refocus and know that these are areas of my strengths and these are areas that I'm struggling in. Therefore, I need to put extra effort in this. So these assessments should be very detailed and showing where the learner went wrong or what should have been right. Emphasize strengths, and someone else would call them weaknesses, but I call them areas of improvement. And let us also be able to highlight some remedial course of action and always be positive in nature. Be positive in nature. It's very important. So it's always good for you to be natural. Let the other person that is receiving feedback see you as a normal human being, not someone from planet Mars. Further, develop their knowledge, understanding, and skills. Support their future learning. Indicate areas of success in their work, and also indicate areas of future improvement. And also enable them to improve and plan their next steps. But as I said, remember, this is not a one-way process. We said it is a two-way process. Always create an atmosphere that someone also is able to give a solution to a challenge that is existing. And let him or her be able to suggest ways that they will be using to improve the next level. Now, that is feedback to learners. So feedback to teachers. Make decisions about learners' needs to carefully plan for the next lesson. Help them to know how well their learners could reach the stated competencies. Very important. Sometimes when we sit in classes of other teachers, we help them really to see where they can't be able to see, or maybe give them extra knowledge about the students and where they're struggling from. Provide them with opportunities to be reflective about academic and social progress of their learners. When I go to class and I observe students learning, so I give feedback to the students, and of course I appreciate them for the effort put in to really study, but I also take time to sit with the teacher and say, teacher, I observed these behaviors. So this is very good if there are areas for sure of strength. And I also was able to observe areas that we need to improve upon. Remember, I'm not saying areas that you need to improve upon. Areas that we need to improve upon, me and that teacher. And therefore, that is why it's a concern to you that you have to sit with that teacher and be able to discuss and run through that. Are we together, my friends? Also, support them to gain a deep understanding of each learner's strengths and needs. When you are in that class as a third eye, observe learners as individuals. See their area of strength and see their area of weaknesses, or their areas they need to improve upon. It could be a gifted student, and that as you are there seated observing the lesson, this gifted student does not want to give other students an opportunity to talk or to say the answer, and they are overshadowing them. That is an area that such a child who is gifted that needs to improve upon. So share with the teacher for them to really understand. Provide them with clear and concrete evidence of their children's progress. Now, my dear friends, this is something very critical. As we come to the end of our lesson, I want to really stress this. Always when you observe a lesson, make it a point that you take notes. It is these notes that will serve as evidences for the child's progress. And the teacher will use this for him to be able to design future activities that are aiming at promoting and developing some behaviors. Now, my friends, we started by seeing feedback to the learners, we've seen to the teachers, now to the parents. As teachers, and remember, parents are also important stakeholders. Parents, when they send their children to our school, they need to really get an idea of what their students are doing. So provide adequate information to them. This will help them to be able to support you in monitoring and supervising their work, and especially home assignments. Increase parental involvement in school activities. This is going to make your life much more easier as a teacher, since they will also be supportive. Feedback to parents is provided when giving reporting to them. The wider range of running the new curriculum means that it is necessary to think again about how to share learners' progress. Are we together, my friends? Expectations of learning relating to competences and the learning objective. Parents need to understand this term. What is my child expected of in terms of performance? That one, there's no any other person to do that. It's you, the teacher. Now, my dear friends, we have come to the end of our lesson today. And I want to thank you so much, our dear student teachers, tutors, and parents, for your kind participation. Students, if you have more questions, always please contact your tutors at college. Again, I want to thank you. And this lesson has been produced by Rwanda Education Board in collaboration with World Bank and other partners. Stay tuned. See you next time. Goodbye.